everyone. Welcome to the Kim Iversen Show. We are back from our vacation, so we were gone for a while. I know that some of you were very concerned. I did get some emails from people saying, what has happened? Where's your show? Well, we were just on vacation, so we were not censored. We were not taken down. The show didn't end. We were just all on our own separate little vacations. So we are back now. Did have a nice long one, and of course Memorial Day, and so we are here. We are here one person short. I have to say, I'm not going to bury the lead. We're just going to get right to it. Tara Reade was a producer for this show, the Kim Iversen Show, for the last several months, and is no longer a producer with the show. We parted ways shortly before our vacation, all of us taking our separate vacations in different parts of the world. So May 19th, May 18th, May 19th is when we parted ways. Since then, it appears that she decided to take her vacation in Russia, and today came out with a press conference where she says that she is seeking protection and citizenship in Russia. I want to play this clip for you.
I'm going to speak out, and I'm willing to speak under oath about the corruption I witnessed, about the crime I experienced. And it is remarkable that Joe Biden raped me when I worked for him in the U.S. Congress, and I'm supposed to be the fugitive. That is ridiculous, and it's unacceptable, and I don't accept it. So as I move forward, I hope to find safety here. I appreciate my friends in Moscow, Russia, that have opened their arms to me and given me that safety, including Maria Boutina. So thank you. I am going to make a request, and it's a large one. I'd like to apply for citizenship in Russia from the President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, and hopefully Maria Boutina can help me with that from the State Duma. I don't know what will happen with that, but I do promise to be a good citizen, and I promise to move forward with my life in a positive way. And, I hope to also have my American citizenship, because the whole thing is, my Russian brothers and sisters, I just want to thank you for your warmth and for your kindness and for opening your heart to me when at a very scary time. Spasiba.
So we didn't know anything about this. I did not know anything about this. I'm as surprised as everybody else to see this press conference today. I'm speechless. Don't know what's going to happen. She's saying she's seeking citizenship in Russia. She wants to keep her American citizenship. However, she's sitting next to Maria Boutina, who she mentions is going to help her potentially get that citizenship. Now, Maria Boutina is somebody who was charged in the United States as a foreign agent and was sent back to Russia. She was, the story is a little, I don't know exactly how firm the charges really were against Maria Boutina, to be quite honest with you. She was with the NRA. I don't know if you remember this story, is back when there was a lot of, the big Russiagate scandal, and they were trying to go after everybody and anybody in the Trump campaign who may or may not, or conservatives who may or may not have any sort of connection to Russia. And Maria Boutina fell into this. She was, she's a Russian national who, as Tara just said, is with the State Duma. I believe that's what she said in there. So there's that. If she is potentially working for the state, I guess that gives a little bit more credence to the charges that were against her here in the United States. She had an organization called Right to Bear Arms, which was a Russian equivalent to the NRA. She was working, talking to people, making connections, doing things, and she ultimately was charged with failing to register as a foreign agent. I'm trying to get the exact language here from the affidavit, but they essentially accused her of cozying up to U.S. persons, U.S. organizations. They say here that she was charged with that she was a Russian asset working for the Russian government, and she was tasked with developing relationships with U.S. persons and infiltrating organizations having influence in the Republican Party and conservative politics, such as the National Rifle Association, the National Prayer Breakfast, and some religious organizations for the purpose of advancing the interests of the Russian Federation. So that's who Maria Boutina is, who Tara is sitting next to. Um, so just kind of giving you context of what of that situation. And again, I'm speechless about this. We did part ways prior to this. Did not know about this. I don't know anything more about this, and that's all I really can say about this. Okay, so speaking of Russia, there's some big news that have come out of Russia over the last, just really early this morning. It looks like there was another drone strike in Moscow. 8 fixed-winged UAVs attacked Moscow early this morning. We do have, this is from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Russia official, this is their press release from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. They say, the Foreign Ministry strongly condemns the Ukraine forces' attempted terrorist attacks that took place in the early morning of May 30th in Moscow and in the Moscow region. Now, Ukraine, just so you guys know, has not taken responsibility for this. There's no evidence that Ukraine did this. They're just, I mean, they're in a war, so you would think Ukraine's the side that attempted these drone strikes. Goes on to say, according to the Defense Ministry, the attacks were carried out with the use of 8 fixed UAVs. All of them were downed by the Russian air defense and electronic warfare systems. 5 drones were shot down by Pantsir-S anti-aircraft missile systems, and 3 other drones were suppressed by electronic warfare means, after which they lost control and went astray. Unfortunately, the drones that lost control fell on high-rise residential blocks of flats near the Moscovici, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, State Farm, Leninsky, Propetsk, and Profsoyuzhna. I can't do this. Profsoyuzhna, tough. I don't speak Russian because I don't speak Russian. These attacks were plotted and carried out by the neo-Nazi Kiev regime, for which acts of terror have become an evil routine practice. Its representatives have long and openly called for retaliation strikes against Moscow. While making no sense from a military point of view, these attacks appear to be directed exclusively against civilians in order to sow panic among them. And the Russian side reserves the right to take tough measures in response to the terrorist attacks by the Kiev regime. Okay, so those are the facts. That's what happened. 8 fixed-winged UAV drones went and attacked Moscow. Nothing was really damaged. A couple of high-rises, residential apartment buildings were hit. Nobody was injured. Just a lot of smoke and bangs, right? So very scary for the people in Moscow for sure. So the big question now is who done it? And I think that's what we need to dissect a little bit here. So Russia is obviously pointing at Ukraine. That's a likely suspect. They're at war. Kiev has been getting pummeled by Moscow. Much of Ukraine is being, there's a war going on. So the likely suspect would, of course, be Ukraine. But let's just kind of, look at all the players, because one of the things about Ukraine doing this is if they were going to attack Moscow, you would think that they would really, truly attack Moscow, that they wouldn't do these just like light. As we've seen, this is the second round of drone attacks that we've seen in Moscow. There was another one, a couple of drones that were around the Kremlin. Nothing happened. They got shot down. Again, it was just a lot of smoke and flash and kind of a scary thing. But at this juncture, these drones have done really nothing, no real damage except this light little smoke on the side of an apartment building. So it makes you wonder, if Ukraine is going to attack Moscow, would it look like this? Would this be all they could do or would do? Wouldn't they actually try to do some damage because they're at war and it's not like Moscow's holding back, right? Moscow's actually bombing them. Hundreds of thousands of people have been killed in Ukraine. So if that's the case, then why wouldn't Ukraine retaliate fully? So that's one question that I think would be, I think it's a good question to ask if Ukraine is really the one behind this. Another potential suspect, of course, is NATO or the CIA. Maybe they're the ones who went and did these attacks. Now that's possible. I don't think NATO really wants, at least I like to think NATO is not really interested in escalating the war, but at the same time, we've seen escalation after escalation and continued funding of this war in Ukraine, no end in sight. Lots of people have died, and they seem to be willing to fight to the very last Ukrainian. So we're seeing that. Seems to be no real tamping down. So possibly NATO, possibly CIA would be doing things to aggravate Moscow. And I would think that their purpose would be different than Ukraine, which is why they're maybe more of a likely suspect in this particular situation, because they would not be interested in actually damaging Russia to provoke a war, but really be doing it more to scare Russia, to say, look, we can get this close to you. We have the ability to be here. So watch it, back off, do what we want. But then you got to ask the question, well, what is it they want? Because they're not really negotiating. So, I mean, it seems if you're going to be using these scare tactics, you're doing it because you're trying to negotiate for something. You're using it as leverage for something. And we're not really seeing any of that. It's all or nothing in the eyes of NATO. Another possible situation, another possible suspect or scenario is Moscow did it to itself. Now, I know a lot of people scoff at that, but we have to remember that war is ugly business. And we have to remember that false flags are real. And when one party wants to escalate a war, they often use false flags in order to do that. So the question then is, would Russia want to escalate this war? Would they be doing a false flag attack on themselves? And if so, why? And what would be the end game, right? So why would Moscow do this? Well, a couple of reasons why it could potentially be them. And we just got to keep our minds open. I mean, make your assessment, decide who you think maybe in your own mind did it. We're probably never going to find out. On the last drone attack, the CIA did come out and say that they had, with low confidence, thinking that Ukraine did it to Moscow with very low confidence. And their only real sort of proof, if you wouldn't even call it that, was they had intercepted some cables of Moscow officials blaming Ukraine. There was no evidence. They didn't come across any cables of Ukrainians saying, we did it, we take responsibility, yay. None of that. They just had Russians saying, we think Moscow did this. So they said, well, we think with low confidence that maybe Ukraine did it. But let's just say it's a false flag. What would be the point of Moscow doing that? Well, one of the reasons is, like everywhere in the world, people are growing uneasy with the war. There's exhaustion with the war, and that includes Russians. They're kind of sick of it. What they were told is that this would be a special military operation. It wouldn't last very long. They would go in, they would do what was necessary to demilitarize, denazify, that they would protect the Donbass region, that they would fortify Crimea, and that would be the end of it. But that's not the end of it, and this war has lasted a lot longer, and the Russian civilians are no different than American civilians in that they're sick of it. They want this war to end. They want there to be a negotiation. So possibly the use of these drones is to say, oh no, terrorist attacks, we're under attack, be afraid, we need to continue fighting. It's the false flag in order to rally around, right? Get everybody to rally around the flag. Another thing is that Russia has been using the term special military operation this entire time, and that is different in Russian war theory than war itself in their military theory. War is different than a special military operation. And specifically, the real difference with Russia is a special military operation is just that. It is the use of military only, special military units, and in very direct military operations. War in Russian military theory actually encompasses bringing in military, economic, and social mobilization, deep battle, physical encirclements. They've got a lot of other things that they could do when they go to full-on war. And this could be these drone strikes. If we're going to go down the path of thinking maybe it's a false flag again, use your, assess how you want and make whatever assessments, judgment you think may have been behind it. We're just exploring all the options here. That's all we're doing. If it were them, it could be to ramp up the public, to make the public want then to go to full-scale war, where the public would have to be more engaged. Businesses would have to give up certain percentages of their economic capacity and functions. They might be called, to make products. Businesses could maybe be taken over. Full-scale war, entails a lot more things. Now, we wouldn't know because we haven't declared war in this country, really, since World War II, and yet we've been at war endlessly. So we understand as a population how you can remain in war forever without ever declaring war. We've been there. We're doing it now. So Russia could continue on with a special military operation forever, which looks a lot like a war. But they also might be needing to ramp up and get their civilian population more involved. And when you declare official war, you have the ability to do that. So could be, if it's false flag, to counter exhaustion, just military exhaustion, just rally around the flag. Could be to declare full-scale war if they feel like it's necessary. I'm not sure if they're there yet from everything that we've seen. But again, it could be NATO and CIA saying, we can get close to you. Watch out. This is how we can infiltrate. We can get to the Kremlin. We can get to Moscow. These are just little drones. Just imagine what we could do with, nuclear warfare. Or probably the most likely suspect is Ukraine, right? Ukraine. But again, if Ukraine's going to attack, wouldn't they do a bigger attack, a better attack, a more lethal attack than just, little drone that you could just shoot down, or maybe it makes a little bit of smoke on the side of an apartment building. I don't know. So looking at all that, we'll keep watching. I don't know if we're going to find out, but that is where we're at with this latest drone strike in Moscow. I want to play this clip for you. Lindsey Graham, here he is saying Russians dying is the best money ever spent. Watch this.
Free or die.
Free or die.
Now you are free.
Yes.
And we will be.
And the Russians are dying.
It's the best money we've ever spent.
Thank you so much.
No, it's...
Okay, so I do think that the clip is a bit edited. That's been the criticism of it, is that he didn't necessarily say the best money we ever spent right after Russians are dying. But that's the sentiment, and you know that that's exactly what Lindsey Graham is all about. He's been calling for war, wants to go against Russia. Now he's saying here, this is the best money we've ever spent, helping Ukraine, arming Ukraine, expanding basically NATO into Ukraine without officially expanding NATO into Ukraine. And this is when you see something like this, it just looks like we're never going to get to an end of this. This is going to be another forever war. There's no desire to negotiate. Instead, you've got Lindsey Graham saying, best money we've ever spent. Couldn't spend it on, the U.S. population, the civilians. We've got rampant homelessness all over this country. We have vets who have mental illness that needs to be, that they need some treatment for because of the wars that they were sent to. We've got Americans are riddled in debt. We've got all of these major problems going on, crime on the rise, and yet the best money we've ever spent is on war, according to Lindsey Graham, of course. That's the best money. Okay, another clip I've got to play for you. Here's Hillary Clinton essentially admitting to NATO expansion being the reason for the war. Watch this.
And he launched his invasion, his second invasion of Ukraine, in part because Trump lost, because he thought if Trump had won, Trump would have pulled us out of NATO. It would have literally been a cakewalk for him. And so when Trump didn't win, he figured he had to go forward. He thought he had enough chits with the Germans and others to prevent a united front in support of Ukraine against his invasion. He turned out to have absolutely the wrong calculation.
Okay, so there it is. There it is. Hillary Clinton saying that Putin's invasion of Ukraine was partly because Trump lost. And that which, by the way, haven't they been saying this whole time that, well, no, if Trump won, then Putin would feel emboldened to go and take Ukraine, right? That's been the narrative this whole time. But no, okay, we'll just flip it. So Hillary's now saying, well, no, Putin launched the invasion into Ukraine because Trump lost. Because had Trump won, she says, then Putin believed that Trump would have backed off of NATO, essentially saying NATO expansion is the reason for the war in Ukraine, admitting that the West's encroachment beyond what the West promised is the reason for the war in Ukraine. That had the West maybe kept the promise all along that we would not go into the Eastern Bloc, then perhaps this war would have never happened. But here she is admitting to that. So everything's Trump's fault, right? That's if Trump would have won, if there was an invasion, it's because Putin felt emboldened because of Trump. Trump lost, and so Putin felt the need to go into Ukraine. And, she's probably actually right on that. On this last one, she's actually probably right on that. But she does actually admit to NATO expansion being the reason for the war. All right, guys. Do want to tell you about our wonderful sponsor for tonight's show. We are going to move on and talk about many other things. But Field of Greens is our wonderful sponsor. This is a great company. These are freeze-dried fruits and vegetables of the highest quality, organic. You put that into your water. You put that into your, in fact, look, I got mine. I was drinking it earlier. It's gone. You can see it's like a little empty there, but you mix it into your water. You can put it into your iced tea. I do like it like that as well, because a lot of people don't really like the taste of green drinks, but I have to say Field of Greens does taste great. The lemon lime in particular, my favorite. The regular, I think, tastes great in iced tea. Just mix it in there. You're going to get all of your fruits and vegetables, all organic. You're going to feel better. You're going to have more energy. You're going to sleep better. Your hair, your skin, everything's going to shine when you get all those fruits and vegetables into your diet. So this is a great way to get there. Go to fieldofgreens.com, use that promo code KIM, and you will get 15% off your first order.